how are we going to get the cooperation going that we need when obviously not just America's relationship with China, but the West's relationship with China is so difficult?
Well, I think that question will be able to be answered a little bit better when we see what happens after the change of government in the United States, how they decide to deal with China, how they decide to manage our clear disagreements over Hong Kong and the camps for the Uyghurs and the desperate need to work together for global development, to fight climate change, to deal with the COVID-19. But I think once we have a sense of that, then I believe that whatever the appropriate way of dealing with it is, you need an organized effort that begins with the end in mind. I mean, I thought when, after I left the White House and Ban Ki-moon was Secretary General of the United Nations, I thought we had a pretty good deal with the Millennium Development Goals. When you could get people to agree with the end, then you could give them flexibility in how to get to the end. And it was easier to help people who were clearly committed to it. When I worked with then Secretary General Ban Ki-moon in the aftermath of the tsunami, we got all kinds of help from all kinds of places in different ways. But we managed the respect for the sovereignty of all the affected countries, and they could channel it in different ways. And we got an enormous amount done. And it was done in a way that also permitted private sector participation and NGO participation. So we can do this if there is a sense that the major forces at play in the world can agree on the end in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think for the new administration in the US, I think the big challenge with China is to get what I would call a strategic framework for dealing with China, rather than a series of ad hoc reactions to whatever the Chinese may be doing. And I don't know what you think about this, but I always think you just got to distinguish between two things. One is the power of China today is a fact, and it's a perfectly justifiable fact in the sense of it's a large population country, ancient civilization, huge economy. China is and should be one of the great powers of the world for the 21st century. The problem is the system is a different system. And whereas I think when you and I were in office, there was not an expectation exactly, but a hope that as China opened up and developed, then political development, not in terms of turning into a Western style democracy, but political evolution in the direction of more liberalism. I think that was our hope, and possibly it certainly was my actual expectation. But you've got to say in the last few years, there's been more external aggression and more internal repression. So that's just a fact. So that's what we're dealing with now. And I think the strategic relationship is very important to define, because you need America and Europe to work together. I think it would be bad if, as it were, Europe is kind of navigating between the US and China. And I think that strategic framework has to accept that there will be areas of confrontation, and you've just mentioned some now. There are inevitably areas of competition. Technology is going to be one. But you need to leave some space for cooperation. Because whether it's the pandemic or indeed what we'll talk about a bit later, climate change, none of these problems can be solved today without the participation of China. And therefore we've got to, I think the analogies with the Cold War are kind of misplaced. And indeed, as some of the Bloomberg documents show for the forum, I mean, decoupling is going to be painful for both of us, for the West and for China. So I think this, if you can get as you rightly say, if the new president comes in and has a more strategic framework, then you can identify, consistent with that, areas of cooperation and at least offer China the possibility, whatever differences there are, for those areas of cooperation to be fruitful for both sides.
I agree with that. I also think we can strengthen our negotiating position, if you will, or our cooperating position by reestablishing the relationships that we had with other countries in Asia and Southeast Asia in particular, who were our allies, who would have been the principal partners in the trade deal that President Trump killed, the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Whether the new administration chooses to revive that or not, we can clearly do more to strengthen our partnership and work with them. And we have to recognize and just level with people, the old Chinese system, which was by no means a democracy, still guaranteed enough debate and play and openness because there was a regular rotation of leadership. And now that it appears that a person is in charge of China who intends to stay there for life, in essence, that changes things. But we shouldn't accept or assume that it's all going to be bad without working to make it better. We got to try to, we got to give the new administration a chance to articulate an approach and then try to achieve, in cooperation with Europe and the United States and the international bodies, a strategic partnership which will enable us to do good things together and try to minimize the bad things that we think will happen if we just walk away.